Good evening, students. This is the third lecture of the chapter Is Matter Around Us Pure? This is the third session. Already two lectures were posted regarding this chapter, and we have discussed matter, what is matter, the classification of matter, elements, compounds, their characteristics, their properties, difference of physical change, chemical change, solution, and some formulas. And today's session we will discuss a little more regarding this chapter. And there is a extra session that will be your question answers based session, so that will be posted 2 or 3 days from the date of upload of this session. So in this session we will discuss the rest of the topic and the chapter will complete, and the next session will be your question based session, question answer based session related to this chapter. So let's come to the point. The first topic of today is types of solution. In the last lecture I have already posted that what is solution, what is concentration of solution, and 2 or 3 formulas, and today we will discuss the first topic, that is types of solution. How many types of solution are there, and the types of solution are classified. Actually solutions are classified on the basis of 3 aspects. So the first topic is your types of solution. Types of solution. So number A, that is types of solution. First we will differentiate or classify solution on the basis of size of the solute particles. Actually solution is solvent plus solute. Solution is composed of solvent and solute. That means we will classify first on the basis of size of solute particles. So number 1, on the basis of size of solute particles. On the basis of size of solute particles. Actually on the basis of size of solute particles, solutes are classified, solution are classified at 3 types. One is your true solution, number 2 is your sol or colloid, and number 3 is your suspension. Clear? So first is your true solution. First is your true solution. Number 2 will be your sol, or it has another name, we can rename it as colloid, sol or colloid, and number 3 is your suspension. So I will discuss these 3 one by one under the same paragraph. Okay, so first true solution, it is a homogeneous solution. That means same type of solution. That is your first is your, it is homogeneous solution. True solution, first is your homogeneous solution. Sol, it is a heterogeneous, that is different kind of solid particles are mixed. It is heterogeneous solution. And suspension, this is also your heterogeneous solution. Now what is sol, that means colloid, and what is suspension, I will discuss in the next 2 or 3 topics. After the 2 or 3 topics I will discuss what is solid and what is sol or colloid and what is suspension. Just now write suspension is your heterogeneous solution. Heterogeneous solution. Clear? Number 2. Now true solution, the size of the solid particle is between 1 nanometer or 10 to the power minus 9 nanometer. In true solution, the size of the solid particle is between or is less than 1 nanometer or 10 to the power minus 9 nanometer. So size of solute particles is less than 1 nanometer or 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Size of solute particles is less than 1 nanometer or 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Clear? Next, point number 2, in case of sol, size of the solid particle is between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Size of solute particles is between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer, this is N. Between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Next, in case of suspension, the size of the solid particle is more than 1000 nanometer. So we will write size of the solute particle is more than 1000 nanometer. Size of solute particles is more than 1000 nanometer. Clear? Next, point number 3. In case of true solution, particles cannot pass through filter paper. If we want to separate the solute particles, then in case of true solution, solute particles cannot pass through the filter paper. So we will write particles cannot pass through the filter paper. This is E, filter paper. Particles cannot pass through the filter paper. Clear? In case of sol or colloid, particles can pass. In this case, particles can pass through the filter paper. So you will write particles can pass through the filter paper. And finally, in case of suspension, here particles cannot pass, like true solution. Here also particles cannot pass through filter paper. So we will write particles cannot pass through the filter paper. Clear? Number 4. True solution is very much stable. True solution is very much stable. This is very stable. True solution is very stable. In case of sol or colloid, it is stable also and settle down only on centrifugation. Centrifugation means when you stirred the solution with some spoon or anything, that means the solution will be settled down, the solid particle will settle down. So it is stable and settle only on centrifugation. On centrifugation. Clear? Stable and settle only on centrifugation. This is E. Clear? Next, in case of suspension, this is unstable. Suspension is unstable and it settle down on its own. That means it will settle down on its own. It will settle down only by itself. No need to stir the solution. It will settle down only by itself. So it is unstable. It is unstable and settle down on its own. Settle down on its own. It is unstable and settle down on its own. Clear? Now what is the example of true solution? Example of true solution will be like solution of sugar and water or solution of salt and water. That will be your true solution. So you will write solution of sugar and water. Solution of sugar and water. Solution of sodium chloride, that is salt and water. Clear? Solution of sodium chloride, NaCl and water, and solution of sugar and water. This is your true solution. What is the example of sol? Example of sol will be your like milk, Milk is one type of sol or colloid. Milk, fog, these two are the examples of sol or colloid. In case of suspension, the example will be like smoke in the air, that is the smoke in air. This is one type of suspension. Next, muddy water. If you mix mud in water, that is muddy water. This is example of suspension. Muddy water. This is your suspension. Clear? So these are the types of solution on the basis of solute particles, on the basis of size of the solute particles. Clear? Next we will classify. So let me erase it first. Next, so next type of solution, on the second basis we will classify type of solution as the basis of amount of solute. First we have classified the type solution on the basis of size of the solute particles. Now we will classify on the amount of solute present in the solution. So on the basis of amount of solute, on the basis of amount of solute, there are three solutions on the basis of amount of solute. One is your unsaturated solution. Number two is your saturated solution. Saturated solution. And number three will be your supersaturated solution. Supersaturated solution. So number one is your unsaturated solution, number two will be your saturated solution, and number three will be your supersaturated solution. Now what is unsaturated solution? A solution is said to be unsaturated. A solution is said to be unsaturated when it has lesser amount of solute. Clear? A solution is said to be unsaturated when it has lesser amount of solute that it can dissolve at a given temperature. Suppose a solution that can dissolve 10 gram of sugar. Suppose a solution that can dissolve 10 gram of sugar, that means sugar is a solute particles. Clear? Now you have given 2 spoons of sugar, that means only say 6 grams of sugar. Now listen carefully, the solution can dissolve 10 grams of sugar and you have given 2 spoons of sugar which comprises of only 6 grams of sugar. That means 4 grams of sugar is still short in the solution. Then we will say the solution is your unsaturated solution. The solution is your unsaturated solution because the capacity of the solution is more. Clear? That means you have given only lesser amount of solute than it can capable of. That means that is your unsaturated solution. Clear? So you will write a solution which has lesser amount of solute that it can dissolve at a given temperature. This is E, at a given temperature. So a solution which has lesser amount of solute that it can dissolve at a given temperature. Lesser amount of solute. Clear? Now what is saturated solution? A solution is said to be saturated solution when the solute will be your maximum amount. That means the solute will be your maximum amount. That means if a solution suppose can take 10 grams of sugar and you have given 10 grams of sugar, exactly you have given 10 grams of sugar. That means it has reached the maximum amount. The solution has reached already its maximum amount. It can take 10 grams of sugar maximum and you have given 10 grams of sugar, exactly 10 grams of sugar. Clear? That means the solution is your saturated. It cannot take extra amount of solute. That is your saturated solution. That means maximum amount of solute. So the definition will be a solution which has maximum amount of solute that it can dissolve at a given temperature. So we will just replace this lesser amount with maximum amount, and that will be your saturated solution. All the remaining things will be same. We will just replace lesser amount with the maximum amount. Clear? So the definition will be a solution which has maximum amount of solute that it can dissolve at a given temperature. At a given temperature. This is temperature. Clear? A solution which has maximum amount of solute that it can dissolve at a given temperature. So this is the maximum amount. So this is your saturated solution. This is your saturated solution. Now come to supersaturated solution. What is supersaturated solution? A solution which can dissolve amount of solute by increasing temperature. That means if we increase the temperature of saturated solution, listen carefully, if we increase the temperature of saturated solution, then that solution becomes supersaturated solution. I am repeating again, if we increase the temperature of saturated solution, suppose you have a saturated solution and you are increasing the temperature of saturated solution, then that solution will become supersaturated solution. That means the capacity of the saturated solution will increase so that it can take more amount of solute. It can take more amount of solute. That means if temperature of saturated solution is increased, the solution will become supersaturated solution. Clear? So the definition will be like this: a solution which can dissolve amount of solute by increasing temperature of saturated solution. That means a solution which can dissolve amount of solute by increasing temperature of saturated solution. This is your supersaturated solution. Clear? That means on the basis of amount of solute, solutions are classified as unsaturated solution, saturated solution and supersaturated solution. Clear? Last classification of types of solution. Last classification is your on the basis of nature of solvent. On the basis of nature of solvent. So just clean this part. So we will write on the basis of nature of solvent. This is third, that is C. On the basis of nature of solvent. On the basis of nature of solvent, solutions are actually two types. One is your aqueous solution and second one is your non-aqueous solution. So first is your aqueous solution. Aqueous solution, and second one will be your non-aqueous solution. This is very easy. Now what is aqueous solution? A solution where solvent is your water. A solution where the solvent is your water. That is your aqueous solution. And what is non-aqueous solution? A solution where the solvent is not water. That means solvent will be anything but except water. That will be your non-aqueous solution. So aqueous solution we will write the solution in which the solvent is water is called aqueous solution. The solution in which the solvent is water is called aqueous solution. And come to non-aqueous solution, the solution in which the solvent is other than water. The solvent is other than water. Now the solvent is other than water means here the solvent you can take, like you can take acetone as solvent, you can take alcohol as solvent, clear, you can take ether as solvent. These three you can take solvent other than water. So the solution in which the solvent is other than water is your non-aqueous solution. So we'll write is called non-aqueous solution, is non-aqueous solution, clear. This is E, non-aqueous solution, clear. So this is your aqueous solution and this one is your non-aqueous solution. So types of solution or classification of solution is complete. On these three aspects we can classify solution like this. Next is your physical change and chemical change. Next topic will be your physical and chemical change. Physical and chemical change. Now first, physical change. What is the physical change? First is your physical change. Now what is physical change? What is physical change? The change that do not result in the production of new substance. A change which does not produce new substance. A change which does not produce new substance. That is your physical change. So physical change is your a change that do not produce or do not result. A change that do not produce, or you can say result, a change that do not result in the production of new substance. The production of a new substance, that is your physical change. A change that do not result in the production of a new substance, that is our physical change. So what is the example of physical change? Suppose you have some ice blocks. Now if you melt those ice blocks, you will get water, and the ice blocks is actually water. Ice blocks are nothing but they are actually water. So if you melt those ice blocks, you will get the same as water. That means here no new substance are produced. So melting will be your physical change. That means the process will be melting is your physical. Melting is your physical change. Now there are many more examples of physical change. Melting will be your physical change. Freezing, that is also your physical change. If you break some substances, that will be also physical change, because breaking means its size will decrease but the substance remains same. No new substance are produced. If you break ice blocks, or if you break something, anything, if you break something, the substance will remain same. The size of the substance will decrease, or it may decrease, but the substance will remain same. That means do not result in the production of new substance. So these processes are your physical change. That means melting, freezing, breaking, or even condensing also. This is also the physical change. That means melting, freezing, breaking, condensing, these are your physical changes. Next, chemical change. Chemical change, a change that result in the production of new substance. That means in this case new substance will produce. That will be your chemical change. So the definition will be a change that result in the production of new substance. Production of a new substance. Production of a new substance. That is your chemical change. So what is the example? Example of chemical change: rusting of iron. If iron is rusted, that is a pink layer or greyish layer is coated over the iron. That is the rusted iron. So rusting is your chemical change. That means their new substance is produced over the iron object. That is the rusting. So rusting will be your chemical change. Next, cooking. If you cook something, so new substance is produced. So cooking is your chemical change. That means when rice is cooked, that is your chemical change. Clear? Next, burning. If you burn something, burning also will be your chemical change. Burning will also your chemical change. So these processes are actually your chemical change. Rusting, cooking, burning is your chemical change. So these are about physical change and chemical change. Next, topic is your alloys. What are alloys? Alloys actually are materials. Or they have metallic properties. Or they are actually some materials in which two or more metal is mixed. In which two or more chemical components, or actually you can say two more material is mixed, in which at least one will be metal. Listen carefully. Alloys are the materials, or alloys are the substances that has metallic properties. Clear? And it is composed of two or more chemical substances. Among them, at least one will be metal. At least one will be your metal. That is your alloy. Clear? So it is a material. Alloy is a material that has metallic properties. A material that has metallic properties and is composed of two or more chemical substances, or you can say chemical elements. Two or more chemical elements of which at least one is metal. This is very important. At least one. At least one means that can be two metal, can be three metals, can be four metals. At least one. At least one means there should be a minimum one. At least one means there should be minimum one. Clear? And more than one also. At least means minimum one, or it can be more than one. So alloys are the material that has metallic properties and is composed of two or more chemical elements, of which at least one is your metal. This is alloy. Now these actually are the composition of some chemical elements. Clear? That means composition of some chemical elements in which at least one is metal. Now the composition of alloy, that means the constituent elements or constituent substances from which the alloy is made, they cannot be separated. They cannot be separated into their components by physical method. Alloys, the constituent elements of alloys or constituent chemical substances or chemical elements of alloys cannot be separated by physical method. Clear? And they are considered as mixture. Alloys are actually considered as mixtures because they are the composition of some two or more chemical elements. That means they comes under mixture. Alloys comes under mixture, or they are considered as mixtures. They are considered as mixtures. Clear? Now what is the example of alloy? Example of alloy, suppose a stainless steel. You have heard the name stainless steel. It is a one type of alloy. Next, duralumin, one type of alloy. Next, bronze. This is also one type of alloy. Brass, one type of alloy. These are your alloys. Clear? So this is all about alloy. Just read this topic, alloys. What is alloy? Their property, 2 or 3 properties given in your book, and examples. That will be fine. Next is your next topic will be colloid. We'll study what is colloid. What is colloid? Now colloid is a colloid comes under also a mixture. Like alloy, colloid is also a mixture. Clear? And this is a mixture in which one substance is dispersed in another substance. In which one substance, there are two substances. There are two substances in colloid is a mixture, that means it has two substances, but there is a substance in which one substance is actually dispersed insoluble or soluble particles in another substance. That is our colloid. Clear? So it is a mixture. It is a mixture. What type of mixture? It is a heterogeneous mixture, not homogeneous. So it is a mixture in which one substance of microscopically, it is a mixture in which one substance of microscopically disperse insoluble or soluble, this is U, this is U. So it is a mixture in which one substance of microscopically disperse insoluble or soluble particles suspended throughout another substance. Suspended throughout another substance. So this is a colloid. It is a mixture in which one substance of microscopically dispersed insoluble or soluble particles suspended throughout another substance. Suspended throughout another substance. So this is our colloid. This is the definition of colloid. Clear? This is this is C, microscopically. Clear? So this is the definition of our colloid. Now what are the properties of colloid? What are the properties of colloid? Now we will study what are the properties. What are the properties of colloid? Number one property, it is a mixture. Colloid is a mixture because the first line says it is a mixture. Now what type of mixture? It is a heterogeneous mixture. So a colloid is a heterogeneous mixture. Number two property is here, the size of the colloid particle is too small that it cannot be seen with a naked eye. It cannot be seen with a naked eye. We cannot see by our naked eyes because the particle is very, very small. So we will write size of particles of a colloid. Size of particles of a colloid is too small to be individually seen with a naked eye, or you can say by naked eyes. So size of the particles of a colloid is too small to be seen or to be individually seen by naked eyes. The third property is colloids are big enough to scatter a beam of light passing through it and make its path visible. Now suppose you have a colloid in a container and a beam of light is passed through the colloid. Now the property of a colloid is that it will scatter the beam of light. It will scatter the beam of light passing through it and makes the path visible. That means you can easily see the path throughout the colloid. It will you can easily see the path, that is the light path, through the colloid. This is the property that it will scatter the light. It will scatter the light. So this is the property and it is known as Tyndall effect. The effect, this experiment is known as the Tyndall effect. Clear? So the property, I will write the properties first. Colloids are big enough, that means the particles of colloid are very big, but it cannot be seen with a naked eye. Colloids, the particles are actually big, but they are not so big that we can see with the naked eye. But that means for our naked eyes, the particle is small. If we see with our naked eyes, the particle will be small. Clear? But they are big in case of microscopic view. If we see through microscope, so for microscopic view, the particles are big enough. But if we see with a naked eye, the particle will be small. So don't confuse in this. Clear? So colloids are big enough to scatter a beam of light colloids are big enough to scatter a beam of light passing through it and make its path visible So colloids are big enough to scatter a beam of light passing through it and make its path visible. Last property, and also this the experiment or this property is also known as Tyndall effect. Just if you question is asked what is Tyndall effect, so just write Tyndall effect is the colloids are big. Tyndall effect is the property by which colloids are big enough to scatter a beam of light passing through it and make its path visible. The effect is known as the effect of this colloid particle is known as the Tyndall effect. Clear? So last property, that property of colloid, that is they are quite stable. That means the property of colloid is, last property is the colloid particles are very stable. Colloid particles are very stable, and when they left undisturbed, they are settled down. The particles will settle down when they are left undisturbed. That means if we have a colloid in a container and if we left the container undisturbed, after some time the colloid particle will settle down. That means it is a very stable. So we will write they do not settle down when left undisturbed. They do not settle down when left undisturbed. That means they are quite stable. So we will write colloid is quite stable. Colloid is quite stable. They do not settle down when left undisturbed. So colloid is quite stable. Clear? So this is what about colloids and properties. Next we will study the example of colloids. Now in your NCERT book there are various type of colloids given. Clear? So just study those examples, because the examples are very important. You will be asked that what is the type of colloid, is it a liquid phase or it is a gas phase or it is a solid phase. Clear? So the examples will be very, very important. So I will write 3 or 4 examples of colloid so that you can better understand. So we will have different types of colloid. These are the actual examples of colloid. Different types of colloid. There are 2 phases in colloid. One is your dispersed phase and one is your dispersing medium. Because the definition of colloid says that it is a mixture in which one substance is actually dispersed over the another substance. So there is a dispersed phase and there is a dispersing medium. So number 1 is your dispersed phase. Another one will be your dispersing medium. Third one will be your type. What type of colloid is it? And number 4 will be your example. Clear? Number 4 will be your example. So first, if the dispersed phase is liquid and the dispersing medium is gas, if the dispersed phase is liquid and the dispersing medium is gas, then the type of colloid formed is your aerosol. Clear? What is the example? Like fog, cloud. So question will be asked like this, that mention the dispersed phase and dispersing medium of aerosol. So we will write the dispersed phase is liquid, the dispersing medium is gas, and example of aerosol is your fog and cloud. Clear? Next, so liquid, gas, aerosol, fog and cloud. Liquid, gas, aerosol, fog and cloud. Next, if the dispersed phase is solid, if the dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is gas, then also the colloid type is your aerosol. Clear? If the dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is gas, then also type of colloid is your aerosol, but the example will be different. Example will be different. The example will be here smoke. Smoke. This is also aerosol, but here the dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is your gas. So this is very important. Clear? This is very important. Next, if the dispersed phase is gas, if the dispersed phase is gas and dispersing medium is liquid, if the dispersed phase is gas and the dispersing medium is liquid, then the type of colloid form is your foam. So what is the example of foam? Shaving cream. The cream that we used during shaving, that is the shaving cream, is actually your foam. So it is your one type of aerosol. So example will be shaving cream. So example will be the shaving cream. Clear? This is the one type of aerosol. This is the one type of foam. So if the dispersed phase is gas and the dispersing medium is your liquid, then the type of colloid form is foam. The example will be your shaving cream. Next, if the suppose dispersed phase is liquid, suppose if the dispersed phase is your liquid and the dispersing medium is also liquid, both are liquids, then the type of colloid formed is your emulsion. This is very important. Emulsion. What is the example? The example will be your milk. So milk is one type of emulsion where both the medium is liquid. Let's take another example. Suppose the dispersed phase is your solid. Dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is your liquid. Dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is liquid. So type of colloid formed is your sol. What is the example of sol? Milk of magnesia. Milk of magnesia. This is your sol, and mud. This is also actually sol. Mud. Mud is also actually a sol. This milk of magnesia, mud and milk, these three are very important. Clear? So if the dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is liquid, then the type of colloid formed is your sol. The example will be your milk of magnesia and mud. So questions can be asked like this. If you find give an example of give an example of sol. Your answer will be milk of magnesia. Or it can be asked like this. What is the milk of magnesia? What is the milk of magnesia? So you will write milk of magnesia is a sol where dispersed phase is solid and the dispersing medium is liquid. Lastly, suppose dispersed phase is liquid. Dispersed phase is liquid and the dispersing medium is your solid. Dispersed phase is liquid and the dispersing medium is your solid. Next, the type of colloid formed is your actually gel. This is E. Gel. Clear? The example will be like jelly, butter that we ate is your actually gel. Jelly, butter actually is your gel, that is colloid, and dispersed phase is liquid and the dispersing medium is your solid. So these are the types of colloid we will study. Clear? Next topic is your suspension. Now colloid and suspensions are very close to each other, but there is a little difference between colloid and suspension. Now if you study the properties of both colloid and suspension, then you will easily identify that what is the little difference between colloid and suspension. So our next topic is that suspension. suspension. Now what is suspension? Suspension is actually the same type of colloid, but it is not exactly colloid. The colloid was your heterogeneous mixture, but here the suspension will be your homogeneous mixture. Both are mixtures. Suspension and colloid both are mixtures, but colloid was your heterogeneous mixture and suspension will be your homogeneous mixture. And also there are two medium in suspension. There is one medium is dispersed over the another medium, but there is a little difference is that the suspension particles, in case of suspension the solute particles will float over another. In case of suspension the solute particles will float freely in the medium or it will float freely in the medium or it will float over the another medium. That is absent in case of colloid. In case of colloid it is widely distributed, or we can say it is evenly distributed over another substance, and sometimes it is dissolved also. But in case of suspension the solute particles will not dissolve, it actually float over the another substance. So this is the basic difference of suspension and colloid. And also suspension is your homogeneous mixture and colloid was your heterogeneous mixture. So first suspension, it is a suspension. A suspension is a mixture in which the solute particles do not dissolve but get suspended this is E, but get suspended throughout the bulk of the solvent, and left floating or can float around freely in the medium, So this is the suspension. A suspension is a mixture in which the solute particles do not dissolve but get suspended throughout the bulk of the solvent, left floating around freely in the medium. Clear? So this is our suspension. So the properties, like colloid, suspension also have properties. So the first property, it is a mixture and it is a homogeneous mixture. It is a heterogeneous mixture. It is actually the heterogeneous mixture. So a suspension, number one, it is a heterogeneous mixture. Clear? Number two will be the particles of suspension. It can be seen with a naked eye. In case of colloid, the particles are not seen with a naked eye, but in case of suspension, the particles, they can be seen with naked eye or by a naked eye. So particles can be seen. Particles of suspension can be seen by a naked eye. Particles of suspension can be seen by a naked eye. Number third will be the particles of suspension scatter a beam of light passing through it and makes its path visible. In case of colloid, that effect is known as Tyndall effect. So in case of suspension, it also shows the Tyndall effect. That means the light will pass the solution and makes the path visible. That means it will scatter the light or it will scatter the beam of light. So the property of colloid and property of suspension, this property actually basically this property is same in case of colloid and in case of suspension. So the particles of suspension scatter a beam of light, the particles of suspension scatter a beam of light passing through it and make its path visible Clear? Next, last property of suspension is that the solute particles settle down when the suspension is left undisturbed. In case of colloid, the particles do not settle down. But in case of suspension, the particle will settle down. That means a suspension is unstable. A suspension is not stable. Clear? So we will write the solute particles. The solute particles settle down. The solute particles settle down when a suspension is left undisturbed. The solute particles settle down when a suspension is left undisturbed. That means a suspension is unstable. It proves that a suspension is unstable. A suspension is unstable, but colloid was stable. Clear? So that is the property of suspension. Clear? Next, last, we will end this session. With a numerical, a small numerical based on the formulas given in the previous session or previous lecture. That is, I have given the mass by mass percentage formula, the concentration of solution formula, mass percentage volume formula. If you have seen the session 2, you will easily recall those formula. That is, there were three formulas given. One is your concentration of solution, one is your mass percentage, mass by mass percentage of solution, and the third one was your mass by volume percentage of the solution. So based on the three formulas, there is a small numerical, and we will end this session with this numerical. So the first question is, that a solution, numerical can be asked in from this chapter. That's why I will give numerical. A solution contains, suppose a solution contains 40, this is 4, a solution contains 40 gram of common salt, 40 gram of common salt in 320 gram of water. That means you have dissolved salt in water. Salt is taken in 40 gram and the water is your 320 gram. So a solution contains 40 gram of common salt in 320 gram of water. In 320 gram of water. 320 gram of water. Clear? We have to calculate the concentration of solution. Calculate the concentration of solution in terms of calculate the concentration of solution in terms of mass by mass percentage. Calculate the concentration of solution in terms of mass by mass percentage of the solution. So we have to calculate the concentration of solution. We have to calculate the concentration of solution in terms of mass by mass percentage of the solution. So there are three formulas. One is your concentration of solution, basic formula, and second one is your calculation of concentration of solution using mass by mass percentage, and the third one is your mass by volume percentage. So here the formula will apply of mass by mass percentage, because we have to calculate the concentration on the basis of mass by mass percentage. That means the formula of mass by mass percentage will be used. So first we will find that mass of solute and mass of solvent. So here solute is your salt and the solvent is your water. So you will write mass of solute, mass of solute is your salt. So mass of solute is given as 40 gram, and mass of solvent, this is mass of solvent is your water, so it is 320 gram. So what is the mass of solution? Mass of solution So mass of solution will be your mass of solute plus mass of solvent. Mass of solution will be your mass of solute plus mass of solvent. So mass of solute is your 40 gram and mass of solvent is your 320 gram. That means mass of solution will be your 360 gram. Clear? Now what is the mass by mass percentage? So mass by mass percentage of a solution, or you can take mass by mass percentage of solution like this. Mass by mass percentage of solution will be the formula is your mass of the solute divided by mass of solution into 100. So the formula is your mass of solute divided by mass of solution into 100. That was the formula. Mass of solute by mass of solution into 100. That was the formula. So mass of solute is your 40 gram, solution is your 360 gram into 100. Now reduce. This is 9. So 100 by 9. 100 by 9 means 11.1% approx. 100 by 9, and if you convert this 100 by 9 into percentage, it will be approx 11.1%. So this is your answer. This is the decimal actually. This is decimal. Clear? So 11.1% will be your answer. So concentration in terms of mass by mass percentage of the solution is your 11.1%. Clear? So in this way we will solve actually the numericals. So this is the end of this session. In the next session we will discuss some NCERT questions and some numericals, and the chapter is your complete. Clear? Thank you.